Conspiracy theories, eh? Wait till you get a load of this.
Hello, and welcome to Craft Sisters Conspiracies. We're a podcast that covers conspiracy theories, mysteries, and all of our spooky shit. My name's Jackie.
And I'm Cassandra.
And we are Said Sisters.
Hello.
Wow.
Is it rainy there? It's rainy here.
No. So last night, there was like a percentage chance that it was going to rain, and it drizzled for maybe 20 minutes. But then I saw Danny's story, and his kid is like wearing gloves. And I'm like, it is not that fucking cold, my guy. And then my weather app thing told me it was going to rain today, but I'm like, it's sunny as shit. It's just really cold. So Alex is like, it's not raining here. It's raining in Southern California. So
yeah, the rain came in last night and has been sporadic since then. But we had football in the morning, and Gracie was like, well, maybe we'll get rained out. And we didn't. And we were there at 8 o'clock in the morning and didn't leave until like 11:30 because she had multiple games, and it was so fucking cold. And then it wasn't until after the football that it started to rain. So.
Oh, yeah, it'd be like that sometimes.
But that's all right. I'm enjoying the rainy days. She went out to go play in the rain and was digging for worms because that's what kids do, apparently.
It is. Yeah, it hasn't rained here yet since winter has begun, technically.
Well, we need some rain down here in Southern California because everything is on fire.
That's true.
There was a fire that broke out on the freeway on my way to work.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it took me forever to get there. So.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, what else is new?
Either there is a ghost in my house that does not like me.
Okay.
Or God hates me. I'm not really sure. I have fallen as an adult twice this week. Embarrassing fall. Like the first one I was in my loft and I was walking and my shoe, which don't know where it came from, I tripped over it. So I literally fell. My phone went fucking flying, and Alex is in our bedroom, which we have like a wall like for the hallway. So all he sees is my head just come skirting in and my phone flying across the room. And he's like, did you just fall? I'm like, I did. It's very embarrassing to fall as an adult. And then yesterday, I completely fell up the stairs. Like I skinned both of my knees.
Oh my God.
Like it was pretty intense. And he just laughed at me. So yeah.
So I know you live in a new build. Did you do a walkthrough and confirm there were no holes in the floor where
I did
fallen and died?
Multiple walkthroughs. I'm friends with the builder. He would have told me if someone, was murdered on this property. So I doubt it's ghosts, but it makes me feel better about myself.
Just your own ineptitude.
Yes.
That's even worse. Oh.
Yes, that's what's new. Later today, after we record, Alex and I are going to play the cops drinking game.
Fun.
Yeah.
What's that?
So it's like a staple in our household. So the rules are already pre-created. They're on the internet. We have laminated copies that we keep in our loft.
Wow.
It's 2 pages. And it's like any, time it's a drinking game. So anytime they say get on the ground, you would take 1 sip every time they say it. If someone gets tased, it's 3 sips. If someone has a mustache, it's 2 sips. If someone gets shot, you like chug your drink or something. And it's literally just, it's hilarious to watch because we only watch the really old episodes from like the 90s.
Those are the best ones.
Where I'm like watching, I'm like, none of this is legal. But that's okay.
No, and the fact that it was all on camera like that.
I know. So yeah, so we play that. It's very fun.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I started drinking just now in anticipation of us recording, but also what?
It looks green.
Oh, it's just a cup. It's a whiskey and Coke.
Oh, okay.
I was doing dry January and lasted 17 days before, and we said fuck it. But I've been working with my child on typing up all of the information for her science fair project. And so like doing the experiment and planning that all out, that's the fun stuff for her. The actual administrative work is very difficult. And it's taken us multiple hours to type up the equivalent of 3 paragraphs.
Well, realistically, when has she ever typed anything ever?
She does typing in class.
Oh.
So she has her little Chromebook or whatever. And so she regularly has to write stuff down and then type it out like in the final version. So she
I
does
forgot about Chromebook.
have that exposure, but she is a two-finger it's like watching dad type something up. Sorry, dad. I think you've probably gotten better by this point, but oh my God, we still have a few more chunks to go.
That sounds fun.
And then she can focus on the creative aspect next weekend. So she can put everything up on her board. And then her and Evan made and cut and spray painted a little display. So all of the lollipops that she did her experiment with will go here.
So it'll just be sticks?
So it's all of the licked sticks that are labeled. So they'll all be there because she wanted to show off her experiment as well. But
That sounds like you're going to get ants.
You know what? That's the school's problem, not mine. They're all in plastic bags.
Oh, there you go. How fun.
But it's painful and I am losing patience.
So that's what drove you to drink?
That's what drove me to drink. Just type the word conclusion. It shouldn't take you 37 minutes to do so. It's just been that kind of day. And then, doing the laundry and all the other shit on top of it. So anywho, what's your topic today? I forgot.
My topic is guardian angels / the third man syndrome.
Yes, the guardian angel that you clearly don't have living in your house.
No, but fun fact, I finished up my notes yesterday, and at one point I specifically say, like, I've never experienced anything guardian angel related or whatever. I've never, had a near-death moment or whatever. Literally last night at like 10:30 p.m. because Alex was working security. So when he does that, I go out for a couple hours and drive Uber Eats.
Oh,
just to make some money. So I was driving and this dude, I came within an ass hair of just T-boning the fuck out of this guy because he decided, I think he was probably drunk, that red lights don't mean anything. I'm just going to completely go through it. And I don't care that you almost hit me. Didn't brake, didn't like roll down their window, didn't speed away, just drove at a casual, which pissed me off so much more. Drove at a casual rate. I actually thought I did bump him because it was raining or it just started raining. So my brakes locked up. And I'm like, I don't actually know if I hit him or not. He obviously doesn't care. I did not, but I said, where the fuck was my guardian angel then? But I guess that could be viewed as one, so whatever.
Or, wow.
That's what I get for putting that in the world.
I guess so.
Let's talk about it.
Okay.
So, to start, do you personally believe in guardian angels? Have you ever had an experience that you think someone or a higher power was saving you or pushing you in the right direction?
I don't know that I fully wholeheartedly believe that, but I was thinking about it the other day and it came up because of marshmallows. I don't remember why we were talking about marshmallows at home, but it was about 2 years ago and we were going to make s'mores outside and I decided to throw one back before I had gone out. And it was one of the bigger marshmallows. And I guess I didn't chew it all the way. And that shit got lodged in my throat. And I was legitimately choking and I thought I was going to die. And it was the scariest moment of my life because everyone else that I loved was outside, on the other side of the glass, not knowing that I was inside, preparing to meet my demise. And I Heimlicked myself on the counter.
Good, as you should.
But my life flashed before my eyes. So I give myself credit for saving myself. But
okay, so no guardian angel, just yourself.
Yeah, but I'm like, maybe somebody reminded me to Heimlich myself. I don't know, because I don't do well in crises. I panic. So
okay. So a guardian angel is a non-physical being that is believed to protect and guide a specific person, group, or nation. Sometimes seeing or experiencing a guardian angel is also referred to as third man syndrome.
Okay.
So what third man syndrome is a tiny bit different. So it is a psychological phenomena where people experience a presence of an unseen being during a traumatic event. So this person or being can offer comfort, guidance, or protection and can even intervene in order to help save a person. Some Christians believe that every person is assigned a guardian angel for their life, and they follow them around just kind of as a silent passenger throughout their lifetime.
How boring. I'm sorry.
Kind of interesting just to kind of watch someone live, I guess.
What if you get assigned to someone you absolutely cannot stand?
That would be unfortunate. Maybe that guardian angel did something wrong in a previous life and this is their punishment.
Oh, okay. I like that.
So obviously I'm not religious, so I am speaking in very broad generalizations. If you happen to be Christian and you don't specifically believe in guardian angels, that's on you. I don't care. I'm not accusing you of it. I'm just saying some Christians do believe it. It is like a
I'm not
religious
accusing you of it.
thing. There are some Bible verses or passages that suggest the presence of guardian angels. So there's Psalm 91:11. God will command angels to guard people in all of their ways. Matthew 18:10. Jesus says that angels in heaven always see the face of God. And 1 Corinthians 11:10. Paul says that angels watch over the church during public worship. This guy named Dr. Philip Porter, who's a theologian at the University of Mary in Bismarck, North Dakota, he wrote his dissertation on the fall of the angels and said that, quote, while the idea of a personal guardian angel is a broadly held belief in the church, it is not a doctrine of the church. It is not a belief necessary for salvation or binding upon Catholics, end quote.
Okay.
Another religious sector that believes in guardian angels is Judaism, potentially. Again, there was kind of mixed information on it on the internet. Some people posted to Reddit and they say, I'm, Jewish and I strictly don't believe in it. But others had, the opposite opinion. I read an article written by Chaya Sarah Silberberg. Sorry, I think I just fucked your name up. Where she said, quote, Jews certainly believe in angels, spiritual entities who exist to perform the will of God. The scriptures contain many references to such supernatural beings, but the popular idea of private and personal guardians is not part of Jewish theology. Instead, we believe in a personal God who constantly watches over us all over creation, and on occasion, he may send an angel to help or save us, but the angel is merely his emissary?
Emissary, yeah.
End quote. So she's saying that like some Jewish people do believe in it, but it's mostly God. They don't believe in like individual people that are with you for life, kind of like some Christians do.
Sure.
I figured the best way to kind of talk about this would just be to read stories that people have submitted on their personal experiences with guardian angels or the third man syndrome.
Sure.
Some of the sources I used, and I will link it in Patreon, is liveabout.com, Quora, BuzzFeed, Women's World, The Guardian, Reader's Digest, and Ranker. So obviously these people consented to putting their shit on the internet, which means they consent to me reading it on this podcast. At least that's how I'm taking it.
That's the legalese. Got it.
Okay, so a poster by the name of Down Here for Your Soul
Oh.
said on Ranker, quote, a few months back at a family gathering, after a few glasses of wine, my mom shared this story from when she was a kid. She and a childhood friend were walking home from school one day and about to cross a country road that was normally deserted. They'd been warned to be careful around that road before, but being kids, they never thought much about it. On one occasion, she said they got to the road and she was overcome with this sense of dread. She felt rooted to the spot as if something was literally holding her in place. Her friend started crossing the road without her, and a guy in a truck happened to be speeding along, not paying attention, and ran over her friend.
Oh my God.
The girl later died in the hospital.
Oh no.
My mom sincerely believes that her guardian angel saved her life that day, but that makes me wonder about the other little girl. Was her angel taking a smoke break or something? And
right.
So that was one story.
Oh my God.
Elizabeth W. Wilcox was the subject of a Woman's World article where she stated that she very much believed in guardian angels because she had numerous experiences with them in her life. One of her experiences was that when she was about 3.5 years old, her dad dropped her off at home across the street. Elizabeth then needed to, cross the street in order to get to her physical house. And while she was crossing the street, she was hit by a car and it actually ran over her stomach.
Oh.
She was rushed to a hospital, but the doctors somehow did not find any sort of injuries and said that she was perfectly fine.
How does a car run over the squishiest part of your being full of all of your organs and not do a lick of damage?
Again, these stories are up to you if you want to
Sure.
necessarily believe them. Sometimes people do, they're hell-bent on it, but maybe they're misremembering. Maybe something else happened. To be fair, children, the younger the better, they are like a rubber. So
They
you can do
are.
a lot of shit to them and they will bounce back pretty quickly without severe injuries. But I think if a 3.5-year-old got run over, there would be something in there to prove that. On Quora, user titled Letta Joe Galloway posted, quote, I apparently fell asleep with my foot heavy on the gas pedal. I heard a very loud voice scream my name and I jolted awake, just before I would have driven into the rear of a semi-truck. The sound of that voice reverberated in my ears for several minutes. It was not the truck's horn, not that they were loud, nor that they were located behind the trailer. I was wide awake for the rest of the trip, end quote.
Oh.
A lot of these stories, I try to pick like different variations.
Yeah.
90% of them have to do with people falling asleep behind
the wheel.
So try to like stay awake or pull over.
Right.
I say that as someone who literally fell asleep while driving once.
Oh my
It
God.
was on the way to Ohio.
Oh.
We were carrying the U-Haul. We were on a windy road. We did the trip in like 2.5 days.
Uh-huh.
And we got maybe 7 hours of sleep total.
The whole time.
Not sleep anywhere or well at all. And I literally remember driving, and then I remember waking up and I went, that's interesting.
Jeez. Louise. Oh my God.
No one yelled my name during that drive.
Not even the passenger that was like with you?
He was also sleeping. I'm a really bad car buddy.
Okay.
Okay. So an anonymous user posted on BuzzFeed saying, quote, when my husband was in his 20s, he fell asleep while driving and crashed into a telephone pole. He was hurt and remembered a teenage kid knocking on his window and telling him that he had called the police and not to get out of the car because there was live wires everywhere. When my husband was finally rescued, there was no sign of the kid around. The police said that no one had called them, that they just happened to be driving by because there was a power outage and they were told to go investigate it. Not only that, but they said that there was no way anyone could have gotten close to the car on account of the live wires, and that if my husband had tried to get out of the car, they probably would have killed him.
Oh
my husband so vividly remembers this kid, he believed it was real, but his mom believes that it was the guardian angel, end quote.
Okay.
So that's like a third man syndrome, technically, example, because it's a physical being that's like protecting you from something.
Interesting.
Ariel Flip shared with Ranker, quote, I was traveling west on a divided 4-lane highway. It was 6:30 a.m. and raining just enough to piss you off. A woman T-bones me on the back driver's side fender. I spin and come to rest in the median. There was all grass and mud from the rain.
Sure.
Out of nowhere, this guy shows up on my driver's side window. He has a large cowboy hat on. He says, you're going to be okay. And then he holds my hand. I asked him what his name was, and he looked away like he didn't actually want to tell me. He finally said his name was Bill Hill. I smiled and said thank you. Another motorist who stopped by called 911 and an ambulance was dispatched. When they arrived, he moved out of the way for the EMTs to allow them to get me out of the car. I got checked out, then I got to go home with a couple broken ribs and a shattered kneecap. A few days later, my mom takes me to see the car when I told her that I needed to get some of my personal items from inside the car. When I looked in the back seat, there was this dude's cowboy hat. I told my mom about him, and we both proceeded to try and find him to thank him for being so kind. I guess they lived in like a very small town, so it wasn't hard to like go around and ask people.
I feel like a lot of people would remember the name Bill Hill if that was...
With a giant cowboy hat on.
Yes.
We've checked with the police, the churches, and everywhere, and we found that he never existed. But if that was so, then how did his hat get in my back seat? He wore it the whole time that he held my hand, and he had the hat on when he moved out of the way for the EMTs. I think it was an angel. Otherwise, why would I still have his hat? End quote.
Oh, okay.
Someone with the username DeBayLoreBaby told the following story, which was posted on liveabout.com.
Okay.
She entered the hospital in 1994 with acute pain from a fibroid tumor the size of a grapefruit in her uterus.
Oh, no.
The surgery was successful, but she was in horrible pain. She ended up having an allergic reaction to the morphine that she was given, and the doctors then tried to counteract the reaction with other medications. After receiving more pain medication, she was able to fall asleep for a few hours. She said, I woke up in the middle of the night, and according to the wall clock, it was 2:45 in the morning.
Okay.
I heard someone speaking and realized that someone was sitting at my bedside. It was a young woman with short brown hair, and she was wearing a white hospital staff uniform. She was sitting and reading aloud from the Bible.
Oh.
Which would terrify. That would be a horror movie if I
that would not be comforting in those moments.
She asked the woman, am I all right? Why are you with me? And the woman stopped reading but never actually looked up. She simply said, I was sent here to make sure you'd be all right. You're going to be fine now. You should go back to sleep and get some rest. She began to read again from her Bible, and I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, when this woman woke up, she told her doctors what had happened. And after they had checked the logs and checked in with all the nurses, they found that no nurse visited her room that night. There was no visitors, and the nurses did not remember seeing a woman matching that description at all on the floor.
Oh.
This lady said that she believed she was visited by her guardian angel and that she was sent to comfort her and reassure her that she would be okay. And then she said, coincidentally, the time of the clock that night, 2:45 a.m., is actually the exact time recorded on my birth certificate as the time that I was born, end quote.
Interesting.
I think these are more horror movie than comforting.
Yeah.
That might just be because of what I, watch and stuff, but whatever. If it brings you peace, that's great. Joanna from Georgia shared with BuzzFeed, quote, I was driving back to college my freshman year and I got totally lost in the heavily wooded area. This was before GPS and cell phones, so I was just stuck on these roads alone. I couldn't find my way to the highway and I was looking for it as the sun set and a huge storm broke out and it started pouring down rain. The rain was so heavy I could barely see the road, and suddenly a house with all the lights on appeared. It was the only house that I had seen for miles, so against my better judgment, I parked the car and ran towards the door. Again, this is literally a horror movie.
Yeah.
The house had a fence, but no gate open, so I hopped the fence, so now you're trespassing.
Right.
And started banging on the door asking for help. A woman opened the door and invited me inside. The house was empty except for one big beanbag chair in the middle of the kitchen. The woman said that they had just moved and that her husband had left and, that's why he wasn't there and that's why they didn't have any furniture.
Okay.
I was soaking wet, so she offered me a change of clothes and poured me a cup of tea. She let me use her phone to call my parents, but they didn't answer, so I left her number on the machine so they can call me back. She said I was really close to the highway, but understood why I had a rough night, and she offered to drive and guide me to the highway so I wouldn't get lost again. Turns out if I would have just kept driving another minute up the road, I would have hit the highway. My mom called the number I gave the next day, but got an error saying that the number did not exist.
Oh.
Despite having driven that road many times later in my college career, I have never seen that house again, end quote.
That one is creepy.
I think it's fucking creepy.
There is nothing angelish about that. That was like you narrowly averted disaster.
You were almost kidnapped and you don't even know. What was in the tea? You don't know.
Right? Yeah,
But
and
also,
she just happened to have clothes that fit you. Sorry.
Right? At least it was a woman and not a man.
That's true.
That's different. It also reminded me while I was reading it of the time that I called you frantic.
I was just thinking about that when you were lost and you needed help getting home.
Because this was 2013 and I was in EMT school in Camarillo that I was not familiar with. And I
dark roads.
Back roads.
Yeah.
But I missed a turn and I didn't have a smartphone until 2015.
At least.
And my Garmin died. And I started panicking because I was late and my phone was going to die soon. So I just called freaking out. You didn't actually help, really. But I was able to finally find my way to a road that I recognize.
And I am directionally challenged. And so I'm really not the person to defer to in those situations.
Telling Evan she's lost, help her.
Yes.
Like, and where are you? I'm like, I don't know. I made it a left and then a right. And I don't know. It's very scary at times before GPS.
I know. I don't know how we survived getting anywhere. And the amount of times that I just even get turned around driving at night now, and I am going the same places that I always go. It's just a slight change in the conditions can throw your whole perception off.
Exactly. Okay, so user Light Energy told Ranker, quote, when I was in my 20s, I spent 4 years traveling the world. I was in South Africa, just outside Durban, and a friend had taken me on his motorbike to his favorite waterfall. We had both been swimming, but I got cold, so I went out to sit on a patch of green grass. To get there, I had to step from the sand, over this big log, and then kind of across to a bit of grass. I was walking at medium speed and lifted one foot to step over this log when a very loud, booming, masculine voice shouted, "Stop." Except no one was actually shouting. I heard it inside of my head. I don't know how to explain it. There was nobody else around except Tim and I. and he was happily swimming. I stopped, wondering what had just happened. I still had my foot in the air above the log. I looked around and spotted what I thought was a leaf waving about 6 inches from my big toe. It took me a few seconds to realize that it wasn't a leaf, but in fact, it was a snake. A
Oh,
black mamba snake.
what?
He had his head raised and was licking the air right beneath my toe. He
Ew.
was waiting to see what my next move was going to be, and he had seen me long before I ever saw him. I slowly backed away and started walking very carefully back to where Tim was, and I have no explanation for the voice that I heard, except that it was so loud inside of my head rather than in my ears, and it came at a time when I didn't feel any danger at all. In fact, I was very calm and actually happy. I feel that it was my guardian angel who shouted at me to stop, and I would have stepped right on the snake. My guardian angel saved my life, end quote.
Oh, that one's interesting.
Yes. Also, like a subsect of guardian angels and third man that I've noticed before I even did these notes is that there's a lot of stories specific to 9/11.
Oh,
So I'm going to cover a couple of
yeah.
stories about people who were saved and didn't die because of whatever during 9/11.
Interesting. Okay.
So probably one of the most famous, even though I had never heard of it, it just happens to do with a famous person, is the story of Seth MacFarlane, who is the creator of Family Guy,
Oh,
who
yeah.
was saved due to a hangover. So he explained to Howard Stern in 2009, quote, I was giving a lecture at my old college in Rhode Island and went out for a few drinks afterward. I was hungover the next day and missed the flight. I got to the counter and they said, I'm sorry, I just closed the gate, you're too late. I went to sleep in the lounge and woke up 40 minutes later and the flight had hit.
Oh,
He
my
asked
God.
if he was believed that, whoever the female is, I don't remember her name, in the Howard Stern show.
Oh,
Mom would know it. She was like, oh, do you now feel like you were supposed to have died that day? Do you feel like you're living on borrowed time? And he said, quote, such a dull, boring answer because I'm so of the mindset that coincidences happen. I've missed other flights for the same reason, and I'm not much of a fate person, end quote. So he
Okay.
literally does not care, nor does he seem to be affected at all about it. But so he got saved because he got drunk.
I feel like if something like that happened as a precursor to a tragedy of that scale, whether you believe in shit like that or not, that would stick with you. Like,
Exactly. Also, it comes to mind Final Destination because literally
100%.
people were supposed to die and then now death is waiting because they skipped their turn. So I would just
Yeah.
be terrified
That was
constantly.
a good question. Yeah, that's not something that any of those stories have a follow-up. Do they feel like
Yeah.
they're constantly anxious and having to look over their shoulder because now they're gonna die because they escaped fate? Like,
Yeah. Well, he was the wrong person to ask because he was literally so nonchalant in the whole entire
sure,
interview.
but I mean, it's an interesting question.
It is. So George Keith shared his story with Reader's Digest, and he said on September 10th, 2001, he drove his brand new BMW through Central Park when the vehicle shifted into first gear unexpectedly. He made an appointment at the dealership for 7 the following morning with the hopes of making it to an 8 a.m. meeting in downtown Manhattan. I got to the BMW, he said, dealership at 7, but the mechanics refused to work before 8, so I had to wait an hour for a 3-minute repair. I left the shop and raced down the expressway to get to my meeting on the 73rd floor of the Tower 2 of the World Trade Center. I was sitting on the expressway in traffic when I saw smoke coming out of the top of the first tower. It was hit, and I turned on the radio to confirm what had happened. At that point, I glanced behind me in the Hudson River and saw a jet flying lower than I've ever seen before. I couldn't take my eyes off it, and when it smashed into the second tower, fireball was enormous. I've never seen anything like it. I knew it was a terror attack at that point. I'm fortunate that my car broke down, even though many people did not make it. It's still a very emotional thing, end quote.
Understandable. Oh my God.
I know that would be really hard for the survivor guilt that these people
100%.
must have.
Oh yeah.
Kim Kalish, she has a video that I had seen on Instagram, but I found it on YouTube. It's very good. She's a really good storyteller. It's only 5.5 minutes. I'll also link it in Patreon because I think people should watch it. She tells it much better than I do, but basically this is a summary of what she explained.
Okay.
She said, quote, when I was 16 in high school, I was living in New York. But I guess in New York, you have to be 17 in order to drive instead of 16 like it is here. So she had to take the bus, which she hated. She would often ask her dad to take her to school instead. Sometimes he would say yes. Sometimes he would say, no, I'm busy. I have meetings. You have to take the bus.
Sure.
So this one morning, she asked her dad to drive her, and he said that he couldn't. So she went outside, but when the bus came, she just waved it away. She intentionally missed the bus. So she thought, I'm a genius. So she walked inside and said, Dad, I missed my bus. Now you have to take me to school.
Right.
Her dad was pissed off. And so I guess on the whole entire car ride, he's just lecturing her and kind of like yelling at her, like, you're irresponsible. I can't believe you did this. You know, your actions have consequences, blah, blah, blah. And she's just happy because she doesn't have to take the bus.
Sure. And I bet that tune of his changed very quickly.
Maybe. Eventually, he gets her to school, he drops her off, and the last thing that he says to her is, if I miss this meeting downtown, when I get home, you are dead. So she doesn't really care. She's like, yeah, whatever. She strolls into school. She's, doing whatever. She gets into her first period class, and her teacher looks different. He's very like stoic, and that's not normally how it is. So, everyone's kind of wondering what's going on. The teacher then explains to these, 16, 17-year-olds that a terror attack just happened and that they hit the Twin Towers. After a couple of seconds, it kind of clicks in her head what that means, because she's like, I felt a certain way, but I couldn't articulate why I was feeling a certain way about it.
Yeah.
And she said she remembered then that her dad had an 8:30 meeting at his new job on the 75th floor of the North Tower. After about a minute, her phone rang, and it was her dad.
Oh my God.
Telling her, I'm okay. I was so mad at you that I called my office and I canceled my meeting. I was going to go to a different office, and I'll go back to the meeting the following day. He's like, I'm coming to pick you up. And then I guess they drove in silence home. And finally, when he got home, he's like, thanks for being a brat. And was like, didn't want to admit, like, hey, by the way, you totally saved my life. But he acknowledged it.
Oh my God.
Energy that she has is super cool to watch.
Oh, yeah. And I can already tell that would be one that would get to me emotionally.
Yes, definitely. Oh, God. Okay, so kind of let's go into the explanations of this. These are all interesting, compelling stories, whether you choose to believe that they happened or didn't. But the question that always got me personally about guardian angels is, if they do exist, why are they only there for certain people and not there for other people? Why doesn't everyone get saved all the time?
I mean, isn't that the one of the big questions with any belief in a higher power? Why do all of these terrible things happen? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So a couple answers, I found 5 options. So option number 1 is that humans have free will. And again, some of these options are based again on religion, because it all kind of ties back in God at least, but
sure.
Free will is the freedom of humans to make any choices that they want, and they are not determined by prior causes or divine intervention. So therefore, if guardian angels did exist, they may not intervene in every single situation, because doing so could infringe upon human autonomy.
Sure.
So people often face challenges that allow them to grow, learn, and develop resilience. So technically they needed to learn a life lesson, but also they still have to be able to do what they want and not get stopped for doing so.
Okay.
Monsignor Stuart Sweatland answered that exact question, why does this happen to some and not others, in a relevant radio article. And he said, quote, guardian angels are always helping us, but the angels are closer to God than we are, and they reflect God's glory more radiantly than we do. God does not violate our freedom. He gave us the true freedom, and he permits evil because he permits freedom. There would be no ability to love if there wasn't freedom, end quote. So it's very God answer, but that's literally like a Monsignor. Option number 2 is divine will. Divine will is the idea that God's will is the reason for everything in all of existence. So if you believe in divine will, then you can conclude.
There you go.
That the guardian angel's assistance is selective and based on a greater purpose that humans may not fully understand. Some individuals may be chosen for help based on their spiritual needs or the lessons that they need to learn other than the other person. Option number 3 is, I don't like this one, but it's that you have to be deserving.
Ew, no.
So a lot of people believe that they have an angel, and I'm not just talking about Christians, but just people in general. They believe that they have an angel either attached to them or they have, gained one in their lifetime. But you have to either accept and follow a certain religion in order to get access to it, or you have to somehow have a belief system that matches whatever these guardian angels believe. So let's say you're atheist or agnostic, you don't necessarily believe in anything. Some might say that you are undeserving of a guardian angel because you're not willing to give your life to God, therefore you don't deserve to be saved.
Okay, but like, how do you explain that when terrible things happen to like children and stuff? Like,
so that's what people say, but they're like, but then again, it's God's will or it's divine. And they just throw out these buzzwords and they're like, they were supposed to learn that lesson or.
right.
And I'm like, sure, because that's how trauma works.
Thank you for rationalizing the death of my child to, try to, I don't know. No.
As I mentioned, I hate this specific one for 2 reasons. One, I do not believe that an individual requires religion in their life in order to be given chances, in order to be saved, in order to do anything. And that's their choice.
Yeah, no, I don't agree.
Also, in my professional experience, it is only the garbage people that actually get second chances. So
and that's what I've heard. Yeah.
With almost every single DUI crash that I've responded to, like a fatal where someone died, the person who was driving drunk is totally fine. They maybe have like a bruise or a small cut, even though their car is totaled, but they just killed a mom and her 3 kids, or a teenager driving home from soccer practice. Like, it's always the bad guys that get the second chance and their guardian angel saves them, but the innocent people die.
So the one who made the terrible, poor choice to drive drunk and put others at risk is more deserving to live and survive compared to, whoever he just wiped off the earth.
And they're like, well, he or she needed to learn that lesson in order to be less of a garbage person. I'm like, okay, well then
so then when it happens again?
But I'm like, what lesson fucking did the innocent people have to learn? That you can't just drive? How dare you?
I know. Yeah. That doesn't sit right with me.
Example number 4, which I guess I can kind of see, is that not every angel encounter needs to be massive or life-changing. Sometimes it's just very small.
Okay.
So I read this point in a Quora article where it said, quote, some argue that assistance can come in subtle ways, such as inspiration, guidance, or the presence of a supportive person in one's life, which might not be immediately recognized as angelic intervention, end quote. So like, that's, I guess, maybe, had you not met this friend, you never would have gotten that job.
Sure.
And, that's someone putting that person in your life. That kind of can be viewed as your guardian angel kind of helping you out, but it's nothing like drastic, like you literally saved my life.
Yeah. Now, I was just sitting here thinking with the lens of guardian angel over things. I'm like, is my anxiety my guardian angel? Because I have made decisions to either do or not do something based on vibes alone. And it's usually something in my brain saying, no, don't do it. But I've always just chalked it up to a neurological disorder. But like, maybe it's a guardian angel instead. And
does that mean you just killed your guardian angel by going on anti-anxiety medication?
Maybe. I mean, because there's been a hell of a lot more quiet up there since then. So.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at guardian angel, kind of, and like fate. People usually tend to kind of think the same.
Yeah.
A lot of people believe in fate. If something's meant to be, it's meant to be. So it depends on which road you want to take, I guess.
I am one where I don't subscribe to the belief that everyone has the path and it's already written and that what's going to be is going to be. Things happen randomly. There can be any number of reactions to an action, and it's just, it's all by chance. That's kind of what I subscribe to. Like,
do you believe that everything happens for a reason?
No.
Are you one of those?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think there's reason for a lot of the things that happen in the world. That's just looking for justification to make sense of things that happen. But why would it need to be like that? Yeah. I think terrible things just happen because that's how the fucking dice were rolled. But I don't feel like I have control over anything either. I don't know. It's one of those weird things where if you
you have to get very introspective and
then your brain might break a little bit.
Philosophical.
But,
Exactly.
I remember one of the other things I was thinking about, you had mentioned in one of the stories, like the one with the snake, that they were on like their motorbike or whatever. Back when I worked at Harley Davidson, the motorcycle community is very superstitious about guardian angels and stuff. And so one of the things that were always a hot ticket item, a big seller, were guardian bells. And so, hold on.
I knew you were going to say that because Alex has one. His dad gave him one.
And it's one of those things where you don't buy it for yourself. It's something that you're gifted in order to protect you as you're riding it. Keeps all the gremlins and the bad juju away, and it doesn't fuck up your bike, and it's supposed to keep you safe. And so it's like, you don't get them for yourself. You don't put them on your bike yourself. Someone else is kind of bestowing this protection upon you. And so that was always a big thing. And that was really the first time I had ever been exposed to anything like that. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it makes sense. But
then, yeah, superstitions can also just be seen as a gateway to mental disorder.
It's anxiety. It's all
maybe it's OCD. Maybe you got something where you can't control it. But like, I believe in juju. I learned that word from mom. I think one of her friends or coworkers used to say that's bad juju or that's juju.
Yeah.
And so that literally stuck with me. So that's why it's like, I'll never call and say, to get out of work, oh, my husband was injured and he's sick. Because it's like, I think that that's going to come out into the world and now I've caused it. So everyone has superstitions, definitely, that they believe
100%. I don't think this was in your time. I'm fairly certain it was part of the Friday night ABC lineup. But did you ever watch the show Teen Angel? It only existed for like a season.
No.
Okay, so it was, I think, probably early 90s, but it was a show about teenagers and these two best friends. I think his friend died choking on a hamburger or something, and then ended up coming back as his guardian angel, like as he was going through high school. And it was one of those silly sitcoms, but it was, one of the other things that I thought of.
Never heard of that. Okay, last but not least is option number 5.
Oh.
And that being that guardian angels do not exist. As for the third man syndrome, usually those stories revolve around a near-death experience.
Yeah.
And science has not definitively proven, but it's given the option that right before death, there are either multiple sensory stimuli that are firing simultaneously in the brain, there's massive amounts of dopamine that's being released, or people imagine heaven or some sort of, afterlife in their brain already. And so maybe picturing that place, whether it's a white light or heavenly gates, that can kind of bring you peace when you are in a very fragile state. Yeah. Or when people are like, I definitely saw a person, this is what they look like. Some people might take comfort in the fact that someone is there to physically help them. So they imagine, or their brain conjures up this being in order to get them through, because the brain is able to process what's happening, how severe it is, that they know they're going to be okay. But the physical being needs a little bit of help. So it kind of conjures up this image for them.
Interesting.
I personally don't have a strong answer or belief on any of this. As I mentioned, I've never experienced any type of divine intervention or a savior or a guardian, anything like that. I just simply, as I mentioned, I believe in juju. I believe in karma. What you put out in the world is what you get back.
Yeah.
I believe if you're a garbage human, you suck, and that you should try to be a good person. And I don't have an answer on any of this.
I agree with you. I'm right there with you. I'm going to ask you a question, and this might sound kind of weird. Have you ever at like any point in your life felt like you're going about your day, but that you're being perceived by like some other something?
Not
and then you change your behavior because you feel like someone or something is watching you all the time?
I mean, I guess in public, I could think that, like, maybe if I'm walking in Target or something,
I'm talking about you're driving down the road, you're singing a song on the radio that you hear, and you're like, man, if so-and-so or if, someone else saw me doing this, I am not singing well. I'm singing all the words wrong. I'm driving terribly. And then you start overthinking and panicking and trying to overcompensate because you feel like someone else is watching you. Have you ever felt that?
No, I can't say I have.
Okay.
You?
That was a big driver behind my anxiety.
That sounds very anxious inducing.
Because I felt like I was being perceived and that my every move was being watched and criticized for years. It comes and goes, like when I'm more stressed. I haven't experienced it in a long time, but yeah, that used to be like a recurring thing. And like, I thought I was crazy.
So if we were to analyze that, we could say one of 3 things. 1, you're crazy, right?
Yep.
2, it's your guardian angel saying, this is embarrassing, you should change your actions.
That could be.
Because they're stuck with you and, they're looking out for you.
Yeah.
Or 3 is aliens.
You know what? And it could be a combination of all of them.
Your guardian angel is an alien. that lives inside your head called mental.
There you go. Boom. I'm like the fucking dude from Men in Black where his face comes off and it's the little alien that looks like Christopher Walken in there.
Yeah, so that is guardian angel / third man syndrome.
Okay. I didn't realize I had as many thoughts and feelings about it.
Yeah. I didn't realize I would have none while writing this.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you going to cover next week?
Or
2 weeks.
I have a topic that was suggested to me by Evan. And so my hope is that I can get all of my shit together in the next week or two to get my notes compiled. But he wants me to investigate the supposed conspiracy within NFL, and the reason that the Chiefs are doing so well is because they're in cahoots because of Taylor Swift, and that's really the driving factor behind their success. And he's like, you need to look it up. There's so much that goes on. It's rigged.
So the NFL being rigged was the first topic that James ever wanted to do on our podcast. But he's never actually committed to. Oh, he did one and it was terrible. So that's funny they say that, but also just be very careful because the Swifties will come from you, including my husband.
This is not going to be an attack in any way, shape, or form on Taylor Swift. It is just observations on how the two organizations make working together to artificially make the Chiefs be better. There's been a lot of football in the house. He's watching football right now. I don't know how our life got to be this way.
Okay, well, that sounds interesting. I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah, so we'll see if we can get that pulled together. But in the meantime, any other suggestions we will gladly take. Always looking for new topics. You can reach out to us on our various social media platforms, with the exception of TikTok, because
We've given up.
I refuse, and I don't have it anymore. And I am so low on dopamine right now, but it's for the best. I have not found an alternative source, but I probably shouldn't. So I've been doing other things.
Okay.
But you can also send us a good old-fashioned email at cracksissuesconspiracies@gmail.com. You can check out our website that may or may not be working. I don't know.
I tell you.
Patreon. You can spend a little extra money, get some extra goodies, but we also have free stuff available there too. But with that, I'm going to say stay cracked, y'all.
And have a great day.